Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 118. Stone Memorial. Across the vast wilderness, the wind swept across Yuzhou. It was early winter, and the entirety of Yuzhou was covered with a dense white fog. On the southern bank of the great Liao River, there were already people residing in a village that had once been falling into disrepair. This was a village where Xianbei people lived together with Han and Dongying people. Chenxing and Xiangshu were passing through, so they temporarily took up lodgings here. No one figured out who Xiangshu was, but no matter if they were Hu or Han, they were very polite, treating them as just some more passing travelers. In the Han language the villagers asked Chenxing, "What did you two come here to do?" To which Chenxing responded with, "We are brothers, he's my Ge. He's born from the legitimate wife, so he's tall, handsome, and knows how to fight, while I was born of a mistress, so I didn't get enough nutrition. That's why I'm so weak." But Xiangshu replied, "Don't listen to his nonsense. I'm his servant, he's a young master, a scholar." Chenxing gestured for Xiangshu to stop causing a ruckus, but Xiangshu replied in the Tile language, "Brothers can't be married, do you understand?" Chenxing didn't know whether to cry or laugh at that. The village was currently preparing quarters for them, and there were quite a few rooms in the village that had been emptied out. Theirs had been swept and cleaned up well, and there was freshly felled firewood stacked against the wall. In the room, Chenxing used the pine wood to start a fire in the stove. Xiangshu, meanwhile, went out and hunted a few wild rabbits for dinner. There was meat simmering in the pot, and the room was nice and warm. Xiangshu changed into clothes that he wore at home and sat to one side drinking tea, while Chenxing, in just his inner robes, started to prepare dinner. It was their own little world, and it was filled with a warm and gentle charm. This scene and these actions were just like those of any normal Tile, Dongying, Xianbei, or Han family. Sometimes, Chenxing thought that if things were like this, that'd also be pretty good. As long as he was with Xiangshu, anywhere was a land of otherworldly beauty. "What are you thinking about?" Chenxing asked him while smiling, believing that he was still thinking about Xiaoshan. But as soon as Xiangshu glanced at Chenxing, his face actually turned red. "Not much. I'm thinking about the residents here," Xiangshu said stiffly. "The residents?" Chenxing asked curiously. "What's wrong with the residents?" Xiangshu replied, "You didn't notice? There's people of all races here, and they've all intermarried." "Oh yeah," Chenxing said. "This is where the three countries of Han, Hu, and Dongying intersect in Yuzhou. I even heard people speaking in the Tile language." "When did they come here?" "The ones who moved south may have done so some decades ago." "When Tile people turn 16, Xiangshu said, focusing first on the stove, then turning to Chenxing, "they have to prepare to get married." Chenxing chuckled. "Thankfully you waited 4 years for me." Xiangshu replied, "No matter if I was the great Chanyu or not, I'd still head south to search for you. It's just that you were hiding too far away, and finding you would be a very difficult task." Chenxing replied gleefully, "Will a magical artifact always wish to seek out another? Though at the start, I didn't know who you were, and you didn't know where I was, but because it was fated to be, you would have found me regardless." Xiangshu finished the tea in his cup, easily handing it off to Chenxing, who filled it up again. Their fingers touched. Though they had already hugged each other and gone to sleep, Xiangshu still seemed a little nervous, and he added, "Most Tile young men don't like to marry those of the same tribe as them. Sometimes, they'll head down south and cross the Great Wall to go wandering, but they won't kidnap people." Chenxing replied, "So it's a tradition then, for you all to find people of other tribes to marry." And as he said that, he recalled that most of the wives and children he saw in the Tile tribe were not from within the tribe. Many of the tribes in Siwai did not have large numbers, like the Akales, who numbered in the mere thousands. For them to marry within their tribes for long periods of time meant that it was easy for problems of blood and succession to arise. Aside from that, the prophets of the Tile people had also learned much from watching the horses. Many of the offspring of their own horses and the wild horses of the Yin Mountains were strong, whereas foals bred from horses kept in close captivity oftentimes were a mixed bunch. Hundreds of years ago, it was the Tile people who first had such thoughts, and they encouraged their people to marry those of other tribes. They hoped that through marriage with the Han people, they would be able to inherit their intelligence and their learning, and through marriage with the Xianbei people, to inherit their fair skin, so on and so forth. The mixing of the blood of the various Hu tribes, and when the blood of the Hus and the Hans coursed through the same body, caused the Tile people to swiftly grow in influence in a mere few hundred years, becoming the strongest tribe north of the Great Wall. N. Xiangshu watched Chen Xing absent-mindedly through the fire, taking the milk tea that was handed to him. Once in a while, they'd gather up in groups and head south, going to your people's lands. When they saw someone they liked, they'd go back to fetch the bride price. If the person was willing, then the two of them would go back to the Qinglu in Chi Chuan and exchange vows there. If they were unwilling, then the Tile person taking up residence in the south was also not a problem. This kind of internal migration was very slow, but was also one of diffusion. Compared to how Lu Yuan, Yao Chang, Fujian, Murong Huang, and the rest had conquered the Han people's territories, burned their houses, and turned them into slaves, this was a more gentle and more effective method. Chen Xing said, "In our Han people's customs, we rarely marry outsiders. For those outside of our tribe, their hearts will inevitably differ. Even within us Han people, there are rules to be followed when it comes to marriage, let alone with Hu people. Gentry clans of power and influence have differences," Xiangshu said, matter-of-factly, "but every family has their own origins. You Han people always look down on foreigners, which is why in the end, you all ended up where you are today under Lu Yuan's hands." When Chen Xing heard these words, he grew unhappy. Criticizing him was okay, but criticizing his people was not, so he said, "We're not like that." Xiangshu didn't argue any further. Instead, he raised an eyebrow in a silent query, "Is dinner ready?" Chen Xing then ladled some out for him to eat, before suddenly thinking about how the people living in the village, the Hans, the Hus, and even the Dongying people, were all living together. On them, just like with Chen Xing and Xiangshu, was there also some hint of destiny that spanned thousands of years on this divine land? Even if they had blood feuds between them so deep that it was impossible for them to live under the same sky, there would always come a day when all of this would be in the past. Just like a vast land covered with ruins after the fires of war raged across it, within these remains, new life would blossom, returning to that former vitality. Perhaps, there would come a day when Hus and Hans would multiply, generation after generation, on this land, marrying each other and giving birth to the next generation. Thousands of years later, the residents of the divine land, after the melding of bloodlines, would be unable to be distinguished from each other. As night fell, the two of them left the charred remains of the campfire, lying down to sleep in the house. The floor bunk was very small, and for both of them to be under the blankets, they had to hug each other very closely. After their bodies rubbed together for a bit, Chen Xing and Xiangshu's bodies grew burning hot again. I can't hold back anymore," Xiangshu said, quiet and hurried. "Give yourself to me, Chen Xing. I will definitely marry you. Other than you, I will be with no one else in my life, nor will I let you leave me, never, so give in to me." Chen Xing felt that one of Xiangshu's hands was stroking him, so he turned his head and kissed him, stopping any further words. He then nodded nervously, and for a while, his nervousness was incomparable. He turned. That feeling was foreign, but also exciting, filling him with anticipation. But Xiangshu was even more nervous than Chen Xing. When they pressed together, Chen Xing felt that his heart was beating very fast, so fast that it was about to leap out of his chest. Okay, okay, Chen Xing said in a small voice. A moment later, Chen Xing let out an anguished howl. Ah! It hurts. Xiangshu was a little at a loss for what he did wrong. What? It hurts. It hurts so much I'm going to die. Chen Xing's volume was rising to a wild shout, and Xiangshu immediately said, Don't move just yet. It's going to twist. All right, I'll come out right now. Chen Xing. Xiangshu. It hurts too much. Chen Xing was on the verge of a storm of tears, so Xiangshu could only stop. I haven't even gone in, Xiangshu said dejectedly. It hurts that much. Chen Xing nodded vigorously, his entire face bright red. It really hurt a lot, so he said, This won't work, ba. Upon seeing that Chen Xing was shouting as if he had been stabbed by some divine weapon, Xiangshu let go of that desire. He changed his tune and said, All right, let's talk about it later, ba. No, Chen Xing replied, I've recovered, let's continue, just bear with it for a bit. Forget it. Xiangshu didn't dare to try again, he was afraid that if he went for it with brute force, he would hurt Chen Xing. Though he really wanted to in his heart, in the end he still cared for him too much. He had Chen Xing turn around instead, pulling him into his embrace as they always had, their bodies pressed together. He pulled up his pants for him. Chen Xing still felt a little lingering fear towards that move just now, because it hurt even more than when he was hit by an arrow last time. After all, the most serious injury and the greatest suffering he had experienced in his life was that stray arrow that had been coated with anesthetic in Xiangyang, but he hadn't thought that this would hurt so much. What good was there about this? Why did they all have to do this when they got married? The 100 days after they exchanged vows in the Qinglu, was that to torture them? You and Hulishan are really alike, Chen Xing panted. Too big and also rock hard. What? Xiangshu said in disbelief. Who's Hulishan? You, before, you've. Chen Xing replied, that horse of King Akele's tribe. Haven't you seen it before? Xiangshu. Hulishan was the king of the horses that the Akele's tribe, who were known for raising horses, had raised, and it was a majestic stallion, bigger than all the rest. It was a fierce horse, and it galloped as swiftly as the wind. It never let anyone ride it, and if they wanted to have it breed, that would depend on its mood. Chen Xing had inadvertently seen its divine weapon once, and his entire being had been shaken to his very core right then. Xiangshu. Just as Chen Xing was about to describe his feelings at that moment, Xiangshu revealed an expression tinged with defeat, and he said, Sleep, ba. How about we try? Chen Xing kept feeling sorry for Xiangshu, so he said, I'll grit my teeth and bear it, ba. This process of breeding, how long does it usually take? Xiangshu, you think I'm a horse? Sleep. Stop talking nonsense. Chen Xing, are you angry? No, Xiangshu replied. Let's talk about this later, I'm really not. Though he said he wasn't, Chen Xing kept feeling like Xiangshu had taken it to heart a little. When they woke the next morning, as Chen Xing was washing up by the well, he saw that Xiangshu was a little irritated, he clearly hadn't slept well last night either. What is this place called? Chen Xing studied their surroundings, only to see that despite it being winter, the water was blue and the mountains were green. During the day, it was another kind of beautiful landscape. Walanu, Xiangshu replied. After washing his face, he had grown a little more animated. Walanu. Chen Xing suddenly remembered. Wasn't this the place last time where Xiangshu had been investigating Wang Zi's whereabouts and had crossed swords with him the first time? That's right, Xiangshu replied. Once upon a time, all of the villagers in this village had turned into drought fiends, and I burnt them all to death. The last time Xiang Shu had come here, Wang Zi had been transforming the corpses in the village. After that, Xiang Shu burnt all of the drought fiends and chased after Wang Zi's tracks, all the way down south. Yuzhu was out of the way and not many people resided there, as early as when the Xianbei were governing the area. When Fujian defeated the great Yan dynasty of the Murong clan, the Jin king Sima Yao had gone to great expense to help the several counties of Yuzhu become independent, intending to have them defeat the Qin and revive the Jin dynasty. He also used ships to bring many Jin troops, supporting Yuzhu in defeating the Qin. Though Fujian's power stretched far, the waves of rebellion were not large. And because this was an intersection of four powers, the ancient Qi covenant, the Dongying, the Qin, and the Han things were very sensitive, and this place would not be easy to conquer by force. Therefore, he listened to Wang Meng's proposal and set it aside, allowing it to become a region where no one was in control. He would wait until after the Jin dynasty was annihilated to take over. At this time, the Jin troops were taking action on a small scale, and after finding out that the village had been destroyed, they had surrounded Xiang Shu. After Xiang Shu broke through the ring, he had headed south along the ancient Yuzhu road, entering the territory of Shandong, only to be captured when his energy ran out along the Si River. The Si River. Chen Xing said. Where Xin Ping defeated the Black Xiao. N. Xiang Shu climbed onto his horse and left the village. He glanced back and said, "Come with me." Xiang Shu wasn't in a rush to head to Dongying, instead circling around Walanu, heading east along the banks of the Liao River. "Where are we going?" Chen Xing couldn't resist asking. Xiang Shu said, "When we left Qi Chuan, I thought of a problem. Back then, why did Wang Zi want to come to the Walanu area?" Chen Xing replied, "Perhaps he needed drought fiends." At that time, Wang Zi, who had turned into Kajera, had already revived the old great Chanyu Shuluwen with the devil god's blood, but he had instead been given a sky burial by Xiang Shu. Where had he gone after that? When Xiang Shu reminded him, Chen Xing suddenly became aware of that question as well. "Not long after my Shikshan Wang Meng died," Chen Xing said, doubtful, "Wang Zi came to Fujian's side. So then, he went to Chang'an to become a government official." Xiang Shu replied. "But after a while, he once again appeared in the north. In the many years since Shuluwen's death, Xiang Shu had not been able to move on, and he had sent out scouts to seek out Kajera's whereabouts. After catching the trail, he came on his own, only to discover his target. Don't you find it strange?" Xiang Shu asked, looking coldly and calmly out across the nearby wilderness. "Why did he come all this way to this kind of place? Merely to turn 1,000 living people into drought fiends? He could always use more. Perhaps he was bored, so he went wandering." Chen Xing guessed. "Or he was reviving the princes of the Sima family. Is there the grave of Sima Yu or Sima something else? Then he would have his subordinates come instead," Xiang Shu said. "Look at this place, is it the intersection of earth veins?" "No," Chen Xing said. He also found this a little strange. "This place has nothing to do with the earth veins." Xiang Shu said, "To defeat your enemy, you must understand your enemy. In these past few days, I've been constantly wondering, what exactly is Wang Zi? How long has he lived on this earth? Why did he become a subordinate of Shu?" These were all things that Chen Xing had never thought about, but in bits and chunks, through crossing swords with Wang Zi and through Xiang Shu's words, they seemed to have developed a basic understanding of Wang Zi. He had lived for a long time, as if he had regrets in his heart. It was just as Gu Qing had said, he was once a mortal, but had been slaughtered and cut into pieces, before being buried under the ground, suffering endless pain for hundreds of thousands of years. When he was alive, he had even had a girl who he had liked. Is this place his hometown? Chen Xing suddenly had an idea. "Xiang Shu, you're so smart, you've thought of so much." Xiang Shu took Chen Xing on his horse around the peak. On the slopes of the mountain on the banks of the Liao River, there appeared a unique house that had once built by Fangxi. It was a disused temple. Behind the temple, 2 large trees that had been planted reached their branches to the sky. But the leaves had already succumbed to the cold winter, and under it was a stone monument. This temple was not like any building of any country on this divine land. It seemed to have stood here for a long, long time already. When I first discovered him, Xiang Shu said, he was right here. Chen Xing remembered that they had run into Wang Zi in the Kanglangjia without making any preparations. He wouldn't appear here today, would he? What was he doing? Chen Xing asked. He seemed to be making an offering, Xiang Shu said. You're more familiar with historical matters than I am. What did this place used to be? Chen Xing replied, during the Three Kingdoms period, it was under the rule of Yuan Shu. Xiang Shu, even earlier than that. Chen Xing thought for a bit, before continuing, the Yuzhu province of the Han dynasty? Or Yuzhu of the Warring States period. They also called it that during the Zhou dynasty. Xiang Shu, how about even earlier? Earlier than even the Battle of Mui, during a period where history itself was blurry and unclear, in the ancient classic of mountains and seas, Chen Xing thought of a name that very few people knew of. It was a name that he had seen in the classic before. The country of Yuyi, Chen Xing said. Xiang Shu came to a stop under the tree and used his hand to wipe the stone monument. 2 large seal script letters appeared on the right monument, and Xiang Shu glanced at Chen Xing. Chen Xing recognized them and said, Zhang Yao. What about this side? Xiang Shu wiped clean the words on the left-hand monument. Wang Hai, Chen Xing murmured. He suddenly had a thought, perhaps Xiang Shu had discovered the key point of a certain question. This is his lover's grave, Chen Xing said. Should we dig it up and take a look? Digging up a grave and desecrating it like that was an action that would bring down heavenly thunder on them, but to defeat Wang Zi, Chen Xing was willing to sacrifice even his own destiny. After all, digging up Zhang Yao's grave was to prevent Wang Zi from digging up other people's graves all around. There's no purpose to digging up the grave. Xiang Shu turned down Chen Xing's proposal, and he watched him for a bit. Chen Xing looked at him puzzled. Xiang Shu turned his head, frowning. Let's go. I just don't understand, since he has the ability to revive those that have already died, why doesn't he revive his lover as well? Without knowing why, Chen Xing looked at Xiang Shu, constantly feeling like he was hiding something from him. He could sense that Xiang Shu loved him, very, very much, but sometimes, his gaze would remind Chen Xing of back then, when they hadn't yet confessed to each other, but Xiang Shu had already known of Ipiter's existence. It was just like they would be parted at any moment. This kind of uncertainty towards the future caused Xiang Shu's gaze to carry a hint of tenacity, as if he was angered and doing his utmost to defy destiny. Back then, when Xiang Shu had emphasized that I will never let you leave me, Chen Xing had taken particular note of it. If he was filled with hope for the future, then he wouldn't go out of his way to say this, which was to say, it was as if he himself was unable to escape his destiny of dying either way. But with how things were now, hadn't they already gotten better? They were truly together, and the future was bright. Even if they couldn't kill Chu, they had the foundations laid for how to fight back against him. What was he thinking about? Chen Xing was very curious, yet he didn't ask. He repeatedly told himself that this was nothing more than him overthinking it, and he couldn't come to a conclusion on his instincts alone. When Chen Xing and Xiang Shu came down the mountain, Chen Xing thought for a bit before saying, it's not like that. If he revived Zhang Yao and woke her, she would no longer be that person that Wang Zi loved. In reality, Xiang Shu had never understood what exactly this group of drought fiends that Wang Zi had revived were. To say that they were themselves wasn't quite right. But to say that they were not was not right either, because each and every one of them were running around with their previous names. Just like Sima Wei, why was it that when he was revived, he said, I also don't know who I am. End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 119. Borrowing a ship. What Chen Xing had learned throughout his life was precisely the explanation behind these mysteriously mysterious phenomena. When they left the Liao River, he explained it again to Xiangshu on the way. The structure of Hunpo is very complicated, Chen Xing explained to Xiangshu, his expression earnest. To understand Hunpo, you must understand what each of the 3 Hun and 7 Po stand for. While discussing what he had learned, Chen Xing adopted the aura of a scholar who spoke with eloquence on one subject. Xiangshu nodded. I am eager to hear about it. As soon as humans are born, they possess 3 Hun and 7 Po. The 3 Hun, divine, earth, and human, belong to the yang, while the 7 Po belong to the yin and exist alongside the body. Each has a different purpose. Before, you probably knew the general gist that when humans die, their Hun return to the divine vein, while their Po dissipate within the human realm, Chen Xing said. Ghosts are the 7 Po that are lost. This I know, Xiangshu said. Amongst them, the Earth Hun is also called the Ghost Hun, which contains the person's memories of that entire lifetime. Chen Xing replied, correct. The spiritual Hun represents the self, the feeling where you understand yourself, just like the conscience that we spoke of earlier. The Earth Hun contains the knowledge that a person has gained over their lifetime. After someone dies, these 3 Hun will be sucked away by the strong power of the divine and earthly veins. What use does the human Hun have? Xiangshu interrupted. The human Hun, Chen Xing said, refers to the emotions one feels towards other humans. It can also be said that they are the emotions of love and hate. Xiangshu understood, and he nodded. Chen Xing suddenly also understood, the reason why even though Xiangshu had lost his memories, he still remembered the love that he felt towards Chen Xing. It was because in a lifetime, as soon as someone fell in love, that burning passion would be forever etched in their heart. Of the 3 Hun and 7 Po, the love that was born from the human Hun would remain fixed, despite the change of time, bodies, or even memories. If I had thought of this earlier, then I wouldn't have had to go to all that trouble. Chen Xing roared in his heart. Xiangshu said continue. Let's take Sima Wei as an example, Chen Xing said. As soon as Sima Wei died, his 3 Hun returned to the heavens and earth, while his 7 Po disappeared in the world. It's very logical, isn't it? Xiangshu replied, true, but why were he and the other drought fiend kings able to revive? And those Hunpo that reside in their bodies currently, whose are those? At the very beginning, Chen Xing didn't really understand why either, but gradually, as he interacted more with the drought fiends, he slowly began to get a general sense of the matter. He said, this is my hypothesis, but it might not be accurate. Have a listen. The stronger the dead person is before their death, the stronger the power of his Hunpo. If he had powerful regrets before he died, Chen Xing said, then after the 3 Hun are released from his body, they will begin to resist the attraction of the divine and earthly veins, through no control of their own. This is also the so-called unfulfilled wishes. Xiangshu, N. Chen Xing continued, this kind of effect differs from person to person, but it creates a phenomenon. Even if the physical body dies, the 3 Hun can still exist in the human realm for a period of time. Of those 3, the spiritual Hun is the first to leave, while the Earth Hun and the human Hun would perhaps continue to wander. Then, the Earth Hun would be slowly sucked away, leaving behind the human Hun. In the end, all of them get purified and return to the cycles of reincarnation. This is also the reason for the existence of lonely souls and wild souls. Xiangshu also understood. With this, there were often rumors of ghosts among the people, but these wild souls would often have forgotten who they were. They would only remember a few scattered memories from when they were alive, as well as powerful love and hate, which was caused by the loss of the divine Hun that contained the self. Returning to Sima Wei, Chen Xing said, I'm guessing that when he died, he was feeling very strong regret, so his 3 hun disappeared very slowly. Plus, since he was buried on Mount Longzhong, which is a spiritual spot, there was the protection of the earth veins, so the power of the divine vein would have lessened a little. The power of the divine and earthly veins acted in counterpoint with each other, and where the earthly veins were strong, the divine veins would be a little weaker. This explanation was also one that made sense. That's why Sima Wei's Hunpo hadn't entirely disappeared, even after over 100 years, Xiang Shu said. Yes. Chen Xing said. After that, Wang Zi's subordinates used resentment to replace the Hunpo that he was missing, thereby waking him. What the devil god's blood remolded for him is unclear as of yet. Perhaps it was his spiritual Hun, or the human Hun. Either way, in the moment that he woke understanding where he was going, Xiang Shu followed up. When he woke, Sima Wei's Hunpo turned into a part of him when he was alive. Including the tens of thousands of people who died in Xiangyang City, the scattered Hunpo were once again gathered up. That's right, Chen Xing exclaimed. Which is why he doesn't know who he is. It would also be more accurate to say that the current Sima Wei is no longer Sima Wei. Also, because the heart lamp cleansed the devil god's blood, replacing it and residing in his Hunpo, Sima Wei stands on our side now. What about Yuduo? Xiang Shu asked. Long before, when Yuduo died, he had the wolf god's heart planted into him. Chen Xing didn't quite understand Wang Zi's actions there either, but he thought that it must have been some kind of experiment. And not long after Yuduo died, this slow, lengthy transformation began. So, compared to Sima Wei, the memories of his life must have been clearer as well, which was why he still remembered his family, and his understanding of himself was still with the identity of Yuduo. As for the others, Chen Xing said, if they drank the devil god's blood while they were still alive, then there's a big chance that they would keep their 3 hun after death. The devil god's blood contains a lethal poison that influences their 3 hun and invades their body. It's just like what happened with Tuoba Yan back then. When the devil god's blood entered the body and destroyed the person's life force, it took control of the person's Hunpo then. When they died, they completed the process of direct transformation, so the Hunpo did not proceed to dissipate. But the moment that their bodies died, their 3 hun also fell under the complete control of the devil god. Just like Che Lufeng, in the end. If they are not yet dead, Chen Xing said, like with Lu Ying and Feng Qianyi, I can use the heart lamp to burn away and purify the devil god's blood. But after they die, there's no method, Xiang Shu said. Not necessarily. Chen Xing thought about it. If Zhou Zhen had wanted to live back then, would he have had a chance? But the devil god's blood had completely seeped through his body, so purifying the devil god's blood meant that his entire body would have been set alight, and it was very difficult to say. In the distance, the monument marking the boundary of Dongying had already appeared. Perhaps very soon, after we set out to sea, all of these questions will be answered, Xiang Shu murmured as he looked towards the horizon in the distance. Compared to last time, their arrival this time was markedly different. To his surprise, Chen Xing found that Asuka was very prosperous. Dongying, the Great Jin, the Ryukyu Kingdom, and other countries' sea trade gathered here, causing the capital of Dongying to become the #1 place where riches gathered in the northeast. Though the Asuka royal palace was not as organized as the Jiankang one, the gilded pillars and the gray tiles also looked very majestic. It was early winter, and a thin layer of snow lay over it, flashing with brilliance under the sunlight. King Onobayashi had been on the throne for many years, and the Confucian teachings had spread far and wide. The scholars of Confucianism went about in groups, and there were also many young people from the neighboring small countries who had come here to study. Last time he came here, Chen Xing had been kidnapped by Sima Wei and brought here. This time, with Xiang Shu here, after the news arrived to the ears of King Onobayashi, he hurriedly led his officials to welcome him in person. The palace of golden rafters was filled with officials, and the royal family did their best to be the first to lay their eyes on the elegant mien of the great Chan Yu, Shulakong. Great Chan Yu. I originally thought that it would be a few more days before you arrived, King Onobayashi said smilingly as he brought a boy and a girl with him to stand in front of Xiangshu. I gave up that position, Xiangshu said. Now I am the protector martial god. Asuka had long since received the reports from Qi Li Chuan, and the day after Xiangshu had renounced his position, Shimokan had sent out falcons bearing letters to notify the various countries. But to King Onobayashi, Xiangshu still possessed that influence that could not be overlooked, so he greeted him politely and properly as he would the ruler of a country. You are, King Onobayashi shot a look at Chen Xing, before he suddenly jolted. Don't you feel like you once knew me? Chen Xing asked, smiling. Everyone says this, it seems like I have a familiar face. Ha 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 dash King Onobayashi said. That's right, that's right. Come, this way. Xiangshu replied, Chen Xing is the great exorcist. Though destiny has had its twists and turns, in the end, our hearts are one, and we already have made a pact to exchange vows in the Kinglu. Good. Good. King Onobayashi hurried to say. Then we must have a good toast over this. Congratulations, Shulakong. King Onobayashi was about the same age as Xiangshu, yet he already had a son and a daughter. After everyone exchanged the usual pleasantries, Asuka laid out a banquet to welcome the two of them. Last time, Chen Xing had only glimpsed him while they were in Honglu, but he had a deep impression of his single eyelids and the smile on his face. The two children were keeping him busy with their fussing, before they came over to hang off of Chen Xing and Xiangshu. Compared to his own family Xiao Shan, a paragraph could not truly encompass their fussing. Chen Xing thought to himself, being a king isn't easy either. King Onobayashi soothed the two children, telling them to go play on their own, even as he explained, they are children that I've adopted. Oh Chen Xing said, nodding. At that time, there was another elegant, refined scholar who came forward politely, and King Onobayashi said, this is the Prime Minister of my country, Jin Huan. Jin Huan smiled. Greetings to milords. As he said this, he personally poured out wine for King Onobayashi. Based on his appearance, the air he had about him was actually a little similar to Chen Xing. Xiangshu nodded, before he and King Onobayashi drank a few cups of wine and exchanged a few words. Chen Xing, however, was a little distracted, and he snuck peeks at Jin Huan. Though Jin Huan was the prime minister of the country, he did not have the distance from King Onobayashi that a subject should with his lord. When he was supposed to pour the wine, he poured wine, and he was clearly not very interested in the topics King Onobayashi and Xiangshu were discussing, but he seemed to be very curious about Chen Xing's origins. He asked a few questions about matters in Jiankang, clearly very concerned about the current state of affairs of the Han country and their future directions. At that, Xiangshu and King Onobayashi stopped in their reminiscing, instead listening to the question and answer session between the two of them. What Jin Huan was asking about was no more than the irrigation of the farmlands, the expansion of the 100 trades, as well as the opening of new trade routes. The amount of knowledge Chen Xing possessed about governing a country was not considered much, but he had listened to some of it from Xian, so he picked and chose a few to answer, thinking, as expected of a prime minister. May I request the honored ruler of your country to once more authorize a document allowing the scholars of Asuka to go study in Jiankang? Jin Huan asked. King Onobayashi hurriedly said, our humble country will prepare vast riches and gifts to offer up to the emperor of the great Jin. Chen Xing, I'm not familiar with him, but I should be able to ask. Do you have any miracle hair growth formulas? I imagine our majesty may like those more. Jin Huan smiled. In these coming few days, I will arrange for people to prepare them. The greatest wish of my life is to go to Jiankang, so that I may see for myself how the Jin people govern their country. King Onobayashi said to Jin Huan, drink a little less. If you go to Jiankang, what will become of Asuka? Jin Huan did not have a high alcohol tolerance, and when he drank too much, he would grow a little excited. Upon hearing those words, he handed his cup of wine to King Onobayashi, who took it and drank the dregs. Seeing that King Onobayashi had no consorts or concubines and had such a deep relationship with Jin Huan, Xiangshu knew that this was not an ordinary relationship, but he didn't say that out loud. He merely said, "This time, I've come to visit because I wish to borrow a boat from you." King Onobayashi said in return, "Since you have already renounced your position, why not stay in Asuka?" Jin Huan still wishes to ask Chen Xianzhen for advice on another day. Why be in such a hurry to leave? Jin Huan added, during midwinter, the seas are not easy to navigate. Wait until the start of spring. We cannot, Xiangshu said, immediately rejecting King Onobayashi's proposal. We must go. There is an urgent matter, and lives are at stake. If you do not wish for Asuka to be leveled by Fujian at the head of a group of living dead, then you'd best make preparations as soon as possible. Chen Xing thought that thankfully Xiangshu was here, otherwise he himself would definitely not dare to turn down this intimidating King Onobayashi. Jin Huan also knew of the general situation of what happened in Chang'an, and he couldn't resist asking, has it already grown so severe? Chen Xing described the situation of Wang Zi and the drought fiends, before then explaining that he was going to go out onto the sea to search for a Yaoguai. Jin Huan glanced at King Onobayashi, who nodded and let him go to make the preparations. I will lend you the royal ship, King Onobayashi said. But for you to search for a Yaoguai out in the deep sea, how long will that take? Xiangshu replied, that has nothing to do with you anymore. All you need to do is prepare the ship. King Onobayashi, you are already married, why didn't you say anything? King Onobayashi originally wanted to keep Xiangshu and Chen Xing, because after all, one was the greatest warrior in the world, while the other was a scion of a famous Han family. With these two people here, Asuka was sure to grow powerful, and he could use his money to gather men, and let Xiangshu lead a huge army of several hundreds of thousands to conquer the central plains. After all, everyone who called themselves a king dreamed of being the king from the spring and autumn period that united the divine land. At this time, if he were not to allow his thoughts free rein, when would he have to wait until? But since Xiangshu had said it this way, King Onobayashi's train of thoughts were interrupted just like that, and he grew a little embarrassed. Ah, that's right, King Onobayashi said. This. Jin Huan and I met each other when we were small. Throughout that time, we were parted quite a few times, and because Jin Huan was very learned, he was brought to Dongying 10 years ago by his family members, and we faced each other from across the divide between those two lands. After that, Dongying and Fúshēng fought a few times, and these could all be considered great changes in fortune, but thankfully the heavens were kind to me. Chen Xing asked, surprised, you two have already loved each other for 10 years. Yes, King Onobayashi said, revealing a rare shyness. We met the year we were 11, so it's been 10 years. He's a very kind and very educated person who is willing to offer up his entire life in the service of Asuka. To be able to stand by his side has been the best thing in my life. I originally thought that I would never see him again in this life, but thankfully that did not happen. Chen Xing nodded. He knew that King Onobayashi's light great changes in fortune had encompassed much of the past, when he had met Jin Huan, become well acquainted with each other, given their hearts to each other, and experienced many shocking events. Who knew how much conflict between Dongying and Fúshēng had been involved in that? It was just like how Xiangshu had said simply, destiny has had its twists and turns, but in the end, our hearts are one. How about you go take a walk outside? Xiangshu suddenly suggested to Chen Xing. Chen Xing found this out of the blue. They had just been talking, so why was he suddenly asking him to go outside? You're asking me to take my leave? Is there any justice left in this world? What are you trying to hide from me now? He looked suspiciously at Xiang Shu, who gave him a look. Chen Xing grew even more suspicious at that. I don't want to go outside, what are you making me go for? But when he thought about how he should still save Xiang Shu some dignity in front of King Onobayashi, he pretended to reply happily. All right. After Chen Xing left, Xiang Shu seemed to be hesitating. King Onobayashi saw it too, and he asked, what's wrong? Shulakong, whatever you need, please speak freely. Xiang Shu considered it for a long time, before finally saying, King Onobayashi, this matter is really difficult for me to speak of, and though you and I are not endas in name, we are like brothers, n. In King Onobayashi's childhood, he had been sent to Chi Li Chuan as a hostage before. Though he had only spent a short year there, he struck up conversation with Xiang Shu easily, and the two of them followed the old leader of the archers in practicing their shooting. After Xiang Shu took up the position of the great Chan Yu, the political situation in Dongying had changed, and it was Chi Li Chuan that had lent King Onobayashi troops to help him settle the unrest. Though King Onobayashi did not have the same depth of emotions that Che Lufeng and Xiang Shu had from growing up together, they had friendship built on facing life and death together. Tell me, King Onobayashi said, what's wrong? Xiang Shu replied, you two, you and Jin Huan, usually, don't get injured. King Onobayashi, get injured. Xiang Shu picked up a bing from the table and rolled it up, before stuffing it into the opening of the wine pitcher, looking at him with a face of icy calm. What he was trying to convey was that the pitcher mouth was too small, and he couldn't stuff it in. King Onobayashi laughed loudly, understanding what he was getting at, and he said, Shulakong, it just so happens that a talented individual from Fuzhang has come to Asaka. He's currently displaying his talents in a guest house in the city. I'll send someone now to order him to host a private session, because Jin Huan also wants to listen in. Xiang Shu. King Onobayashi explained, this talented individual is rumored to be in possession of a treasure, and he specializes in teaching the skills of intimacy. Xiang Shu immediately said, forget it. But King Onobayashi said, go take a look ba. Either way, you'll have to wait for the royal ship, because without 3 to 5 days for preparation, Jin Huan won't be able to prepare the provisions. Xiang Shu frowned. I'll only give you 1 day, do it as fast as you can. Chen Xing was currently wandering blindly through the royal palace, feeling very bored, but very soon, Xiang Shu came out and beckoned him over. The servants came over and offered to lead the two of them to their quarters so they could rest, and also prepared brand new Dongying clothes. In the palace of golden rafters, the individual rooms were very small as compared with the spacious palaces of Jiankang and Chang'an. There were futons laid out in the rooms, and a screen with a painted landscape blocked it from view. Those, with the addition of the paper doors that separated the rooms, made everything seem very clever and exquisite. What were you discussing? Chen Xing asked curiously. Xiang Shu spread his arms, waiting for Chen Xing to undo his robes for him, saying, sending out troops. If you're sending out troops, is there a need to keep that from me? Chen Xing thought, but he didn't ask any further. A moment later, someone else came to invite the two of them to go take a bath. There was even a natural hot spring behind the royal palace, and when the two of them soaked in the hot springs, the exhaustion of their trip drifted away from Chen Xing like smoke in the wind. Dongying is also very nice. Chen Xing said. I really want to settle here now. Xiang Shu replied, every time we come to a place, you always think about settling down. Can you not be so eager to welcome in the new and grow tired of the old? Chen Xing smiled. It's because I'm with you that all these scenes have become pleasing to the eye. If I haven't remembered wrongly, you also promised me before that you'd bring me to many places, isn't that right? Xiangshu didn't respond to that, his face turning a rare red. He turned, signaling to Chen Xing to wipe his back. With that, Chen Xing picked up a towel and wiped it up and down his back a few times, before a warm feeling blossomed in his heart and he hugged him from behind. He said, "How about let's try again, ba?" Xiangshu's breathing immediately quickened, and he turned to glance at Chen Xing. "You're not afraid of the pain anymore?" Chen Xing grew nervous. "I can bear it, for a bit." He saw that King Onobayashi was heroic and charismatic, while Jin Huan was elegant and refined. The two of them were a good match and had a tacit understanding, which caused others to feel jealous of them. What he didn't know was that in the eyes of others, he himself and Xiangshu were also an ideal pair. "Next time, ba." Xiangshu squashed his impulse, instead pulling Chen Xing into his embrace and washing his hair for him. The two of them kept feeling each other up, and both found it a little hard to control their impulses, yet they didn't know what they should do next. When twilight fell, a bell sounded, and Xiangshu finally remembered. He said, "Let's go watch a play." "There's a play to watch?" Chen Xing asked, surprised, but upon remembering that King Onobayashi was the king of a nation, naturally he would treat them with the utmost hospitality. "Let's go, ba." Xiangshu changed into a cultivator's robes, while Chen Xing wore a set of azure robes. The two of them studied themselves in the mirror. Chen Xing suddenly said quietly, "We match pretty well too." "Match well?" Xiangshu felt that this had come out of nowhere. He didn't know why Chen Xing had suddenly brought this up. After thinking it over again though, he said, "We're both artifacts that have taken on human form, so naturally we match. Aside from me, you won't be able to find anyone else anyways." Chen Xing began to chuckle. To be accurate, Xiangshu was no longer the Dinghai pearl, and he himself technically didn't count as an artifact taken human form, so this was nothing more than a joke. King Onobayashi sent a carriage to bring them to a playhouse in the city. Probably to avoid attracting too much attention, he hadn't actually summoned that talented individual into the palace to perform. Dongying is small in terms of its size, and its carriages are also small. In that box-like carriage, Chen Xing was squished to the point of almost being unable to move at all. Xiangshu replied easily, "It's not like your guys' grandiose superior countries, who make carriages so large that they're just waiting to be stolen from." Chen Xing, "That's right, bastards steal from them." Xiangshu. The guards came forward, inviting the two of them into the playhouse as they bowed and offered up two black half-masks. Chen Xing thought, what kind of play was this, that listening to it requires us to wear masks? But upon seeing Xiangshu take it and put it on, he also put it on. This playhouse was truly too unique. There was a square platform in the middle, and in front of it were placed 4 viewing boxes arranged in a fan shape. Each of the viewing boxes was a little distance away from the others, and they were each set up like a large box. In the middle of each was a table, and on the table was wine. The guards clearly didn't know Xiangshu and Chen Xing's identities, and they merely said in the Dongying tongue, "Sirs, if you please." Chen Xing didn't understand either, and the two of them sat down in the viewing box. Next door, he heard Jin Huan talking quietly, but just as he was about to call out, Xiangshu stopped him. This puzzled Chen Xing, but he kept quiet. Not long after, the lights in the seating area were extinguished, and guards came and placed a screen made entirely of silk in front of the seating area. The outside of the screen was also embroidered with a dark gold thread, so with this, the room was cast in darkness, and with the silk screen blocking, those on the outside could not see in. But because the arrangement of the golden thread caused the light to reflect in a certain way, from where Chen Xing and Xiangshu sat, they could see through this almost intangible silk thread, and they could see every detail on the stage. "What play is he singing?" Chen Xing asked quietly. Xiangshu didn't know either, but he had Chen Xing scoot over a little and lean against the seat. He adjusted his position, his pale chest peeking out of his martial robes as he held Chen Xing's hand. Their fingers intertwined as they toyed with each other's, lazily looking towards the stage in the center. With two light doo-doos, there came a voice from the stage, the desire for food, and the desire for the flesh, are natural dash. With that, the lamps on the stage grew a little brighter, and the company took away the lamps that were blocking their view. The shadow puppets twirled away, and the screen was moved away, revealing a man sitting in a kneel, wearing luxurious embroidered robes. The man held a folding fan, and he slapped it lightly against his palm, using the Han language to speak. Those gathered here today have come a long way to support me, Lord Longhorse, and I am lucky to have you here. The lamps cast their light over the face of that man who had called himself Lord Longhorse, revealing a little bit of an aura of an experienced dandy. This man's nose bridge was high, his eyebrows dark, his lips full, and the muscles in his arms powerful. He looked very energetic. Xiangshu, however, looked at him with a little suspicion. "Let me tell you a little bit about myself first, Ba," Lord Longhorse said. "My hometown is a small island over 18,000 li from Dongying. The people of the island call me Longhorse because of the natural talent I was born with. As for this Longhorse, it comes from an ancient legend of a wild horse who lived on the island that turned into a god." Chen Xing thought, "What kind of wild horse god? You wouldn't happen to be a horse, would you? After the revival of all magic, you came out to take up jobs in acting and performing. As for these natural talents," Chen Xing replied, "do you think he looks like a Yaogwai?" Xiangshu couldn't tell either, and he didn't understand how Chen Xing had thought so randomly of this. He asked quietly, "Yaogwai turning into humans? He wouldn't have Ba." Since Chen Xing had diverted their attention away, the two of them hadn't noticed the natural talent that Lord Longhorse possessed, but as that guy was talking on the stage, he loosened his belt. Under that brocade robe, he actually was wearing nothing at all, and he opened his robes calmly to show the audience. Chen Xing. Xiangshu. Chen Xing, what play is this? I'm leaving. Xiangshu, you're not watching anymore. Chen Xing, this can't be considered a natural talent, Ba. It seems like you and him are about the same. No, actually, he is bigger than you, but it's also not that much bigger. Xiangshu. Lord Longhorse stood up on the bright stage, not at all ashamed of showing his body to the onlookers, as if this was an expected thing. He continued, "Speaking of the benefits that this fellow has brought me, that will take far too long." And saying this, he used his folding fan to pat himself, and it stood erect under the lamplight in its 1 qi long glory. Xiangshu. Chen Xing. The next day, Chen Xing could not stop yawning as he followed behind Xiangshu. A heavy snow that blanketed the sky had begun to fall over Asuka, snowflakes dancing through the sky like goose feathers. King Onobayashi and Jin Huan had come to see them off. Jin Huan also looked as if he hadn't woken fully, but King Onobayashi and Xiangshu looked very attentive. Xiangshu held Chen Xing's hand as he said to King Onobayashi, "We'll meet again in the Central Plains." King Onobayashi stood on the shore, while Jin Huan waved to Chen Xing. Last night, Chen Xing had only dabbled in the subject, and in the morning he had been carried by Xiangshu to the pier. He looked very tired, even as he bid farewell to the Asuka royals, and he followed behind Xiangshu onto the royal ship. End chapter.